The stories in this episode come from the Reddit community and are not my own. Links to their original source are in the description, as well as contact information should you wish to either submit your own story or request the removal of a story from an episode. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stories with me, Jesse, and today we're once again looking at the people who ask us to decide if their actions were justified over at Reddit/MiV A Hole. Let me know what you think of these stories in the comments, as well as any suggestions you might have that we may just use in a future installment. Prepare yourself to reach an unbiased verdict, cause we're getting started now. Our first story is titled, MiV A Hole for telling my drywall guy to stop bugging my babysitter. We are doing some house renovations and some workers are in the house. Today, two guys were putting up drywall in the living room while our babysitter is playing with our daughter in the family room while I'm working in my downstairs office. I hear the drywall guy asking personal questions to my babysitter until her answers started getting short and her tone changes. I.e. guy, so where do you live? Her, north of here. Guy, yeah, but where? Her, it's kind of a weird spot. That's when I finally walked upstairs and told him, what is this, the census? She's watching my kid, let her be. I thought I did it in a joking manner, but I guess it came off harsher than I intended. My wife promptly informed me that I was an a-hole to the guy and the babysitter had it under control. I get that white knighting is a thing and that I may be out of touch with where I should be putting my foot down, so I leave the verdict all to you. Am I the a-hole? I really don't think that you are, as you're clearly looking out for her best interest, and honestly, this dude was kind of being a creep. He's in your house to perform a job and has no valid reason for repeatedly pressing the babysitter for personal information, and you better believe I likely would have done the exact same thing. Moving on, our next story is called, Am I the a-hole for not telling someone I can read lips? This happened pre-COVID, by the way. I've had hearing loss for most of my life, but it was diagnosed when I was about 7 years old, so I learned to read lips at the same time I was learning to speak. I'm very proficient in reading lips. Whenever I work with someone new, I make sure to let them know that I have hearing loss and to make sure that they are facing me and that I'm aware they're talking to me. I've never actually mentioned to any of my coworkers that I could read lips, but I'm pretty sure most of them at least suspect it strongly. A new coworker started, and I did my customary introduction and disclaimer about my hearing. I don't think she believed me because she got very offended when I ignored her. The problem being, she was trying to get my attention from behind me, and I genuinely did not hear her. Once someone got my attention, I apologized to her and pointed out that I did have hearing loss, and I wasn't aware that she was talking to me. A few days later, she was venting to a mutual coworker. The only problem was she was facing me and I could read her lips perfectly. After a few minutes, I approached her and let her know that if she was going to talk someone, she needed to make sure they couldn't understand her and that I was reading her lips the entire time. I told her I was upset that she wouldn't just come to me and that I did tell her twice that I was partially deaf and couldn't hear her. She freaked out because apparently I was being rude by reading her lips when she was facing me. You are totally not the a-hole here, considering that, first of all, if your hearing was perfectly intact, you'd probably still be within earshot of your coworker's rude comments. Second, you tried introducing yourself and explaining your situation politely to prevent this kind of thing from even happening in the first place, and they still proceeded to be rude instead of understanding. And lip reading is a skill that helps you to cope with your hearing loss and not a form of voyeurism, an extra ability that you as a person deserve to use to better communicate with people. Your coworker is shameful and is the only a-hole I see here. Our next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kicking out my daughter after she tried to send my cat to the shelter? The relevant backstory: I have two daughters. One is 21 and in college. The other is 26, and because of a lot of factors finds herself pregnant, divorcing her husband, and needing to live in our house for the foreseeable future, and I am happily married to their mother. The other notable character is my cat, Lieutenant. We call her Loot. I found Loot in a dumpster almost 10 years ago when she was only a week old. Got her to the vet, and she has been my best buddy for the last decade. She is now my grumpy old little shadow whenever I'm home. So yesterday, I came home from work, and I hear my eldest daughter calling me from the kitchen. My wife and eldest then tell me that Loot is getting old, Dad, and with the baby coming, we didn't think it was safe to keep an old grouchy cat around an infant. So we made the decision today to send Loot to a shelter so that she can find a family that is more in line with what she needs. I told them both that they were way out of line, not in so many words, and that we would talk when we got back. I drive to the closest shelter, find Loot, prove ownership, pay the $100 fee to get her back, and take her home. So here is the drama part. When I get home, I call a family meeting and tell my oldest she doesn't get to make decisions about my pets without consulting me. Loot only wants to be left alone, and even if it came to it, I would rather exhaust all my options before putting Loot through life at a shelter. My eldest began arguing with me that Loot would be a liability around an infant, and she is unpredictable. Untrue. She is either asleep, sitting on her cat tree, or eating. At that point, I saw red and told her my cat is well trained, and dared her to come up with one instance of Loot even scratching someone, which she couldn't, but kept insisting that old cats are inherently dangerous to kids. I then told her that she had 1 month to get a new place to live, as she clearly doesn't respect me or my things, and that if Loot so much as lost a whisker, I would hold her personally responsible. My wife and younger daughter are now begging me to change my mind. With my eldest's current financial condition, I would probably be condemning her to homelessness, and that my daughter should come before a cat. Am I the a-hole for kicking my daughter out after she tried to get rid of my cat? No way are you the a-hole for having your beloved cat for all of these years and refusing to give them up for your daughter who moved back in with you and is refusing to respect your home and your wishes. I understand her concerns, however misguided they may be, but you and your cat have been through an awful lot together, and no older animal deserves to suddenly be dropped off at a shelter and forgotten. Animals at this age often don't find homes, and you know your animal better than anyone. If your daughter can't respect your feelings, then she's overstayed her welcome, and it's time for her to move out. Our final story is called Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend's mother she's raising a fucking psychopath who needs to be in a facility? So I, female 26, have a boyfriend, male 24, and recently he got into a dispute with the neighbor's kids. They accidentally kicked their football into our yard, and they came into the garden to get it back. To be honest, I didn't care. But my boyfriend started screaming at these 11-year-old kids about how they are poorly raised and their parents should be ashamed. I was fucking mortified. I sent the kids some chocolates and sweets and apologized profusely for his behavior. I was seeing red flags and told him this behavior was not normal. He kind of brushed me off, and I told him if he pulled anything like that again, he was gone. The next week, the ball came into our garden, and I was about to throw it back to the kids when my boyfriend stormed outside and took the ball inside. I told the kids that I would bring it back in a minute. He went into the bathroom and emerged 10 minutes later, wearing gloves and a football covered in shit. His own shit. What the f***? I asked him if he was out of his fucking mind, but he stormed past me and threw it over the fence, screaming, "Take that, you bitches!" I screamed, and screamed at him about he was a fucking douche, and I wanted him out of my house, and he is a disgusting fucking monster, and that they were just kids. I screamed, and eventually he left. I deleted all of his games off his PS4 and gave it to the kids as an apology. I was so embarrassed. My ex's boyfriend's mom messaged me asking me what happened, and I responded with, "What happened? What happened? You are a pathetic excuse of a woman who raised a fucking sociopath who covered a football in his own shit and threw it at some kids, and he needs to be in a facility because something is wrong with him, and God knows how I hadn't seen any red flags about the fucking monster you raised during the 7 months we dated. I know I am in the right for what I did to my boyfriend, but am I in the wrong for snapping at the mother for something she had no direct involvement in?" The people of Reddit have decided that you are in fact the a-hole, and I have to agree with them, purely because of how you handled things with the mother, who really can't be blamed for the horrible and disgusting things that her son decided to do. Don't get me wrong, this guy honestly and completely sounds like a monster, and went way too far to try and make a point. Kids can be annoying, I get it, and people have every right to want their property respected, but no rational mind can justify such vile behavior, and you were probably so disturbed that you freaked out, which doesn't make yelling at his mother fully justifiable, but I understand, and I truly hope that you cut your ties from such a sick person, because this level of toxicity is simply not healthy. Thank you for approving that I use your story. Do you guys feel the same way that I do, or do you perhaps feel differently about any of today's stories? I always love to hear your thoughts and invite you to share your own judgments below. Anyways, that's about all the time we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for tuning in with me, Jesse. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content, and check out what other stories I have for you. Have a beautiful day, and don't be an a-hole. I'll catch you in the next one.